Hi everyone, this is Dr. Ashwini and welcome to the special summer edition of the Holistic GP podcast. Summer is here in Australia and this often means trip to the beach or pool and has many benefits and of course some dangers. So today we have invited former Commonwealth Games swimmer Jason Cram in the studio to talk about swimming. So just a quick intro on Jason. I'm sure many of you are aware who he is. He has done 20 years of competitive swimming at club, state, national, and international competitions. Australian swimming team representative from 1999 to 2004, Commonwealth Games and World Championship gold medalist. So welcome, Jason, to our show today. How are you doing?
Well, thank you very much, Doctor. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. So, Jason, I'm excited to talk to you today. So, can you please give us a backstory of who you are and how all of this got started?
I guess for me, it started at a very young age. My mother was quite a good swimmer, and it just kind of transpired through us three kids that. So I got an older brother and younger sister, and we all just kind of were in the water training at a very young age. And I was kind of the one that stuck it out all the way through and to make it onto the Australian team and start traveling the world and having some amazing experience as a part of that team. And also training and working alongside some of the best athletes and coaches the world has kind of ever seen. So it was a really incredible experience.
Wow, I'm sure it's exciting. But again, what was it, Jason, that made you push this sport to that sort of an excellent level?
You know what? It was just one of those things that I actually loved it. I love being in the water. I love challenging myself. It wasn't until later on in life that I kind of realized sort of why I was doing that a little bit. It was the love, it was the passion, it was a lot of the reason though is that I didn't know any different. That's what I grew up with. I grew up with that. Going to the pool at 5:30 every morning was my normal for nearly 15 years. So nothing had really changed. And it's just one of those things that eventually you become good at it. And then eventually you go, well, actually, I'm starting to race, I'm starting to win. And you kind of go through that progression of, the club, the state, the nationals, then start doing the international competition where you're racing the best of the best. So
So, it
it's just a
wasn't a
passion.
planned journey, it's just you enjoyed it and you got into it and you excelled.
I've got to be honest, is anything ever planned? You can always put goals, and we're very goal orientated
Yeah.
and goal driven, but goals don't always succeed. So, yeah, it's just something I love.
Great, great. Okay, so let's get now into the benefits of swimming. I think that's what we've invited you. And we also heard that you've got a sad story about how you lost a mate to sudden heart attack, and
Yeah.
what can we do to improve the health generally. So you want to give us a bit of an story there? What happened?
Okay, so growing up, my training partner was one of the great surf life saving Ironmen of the time. He competed at the Uncle Toby's and the Nutri-Grain series, which were really big in the late 90s, early 2000s. His name was Dean Mercer. He was from my hometown of Wollongong, and he trained in our program, which was the coach was Ron McKeon, who is Emma McKeon's father, the current Australian Olympian. And he was a short guy. I'm 6'3", and Dino was, about 5'5", I think, but he had the biggest heart on him. He just dug deep. So to give instance, for a 50-meter swim, I'd be doing about anywhere from 40 to 45 strokes for that 50. He'd be up there at 60 to 70 strokes. So really short, really digging, really just going for it. And he always was known within the sport, especially when he was competing, to have this amazing ticker, to have this amazing heart. And unfortunately, it was later on in his 40s, and this was in his 20s when we were training, but in his 40s, he actually passed away from a heart attack on the way to one of his training sessions that he used to do, after the sport. And it really hit me hard. It really hit me really hard because this is somebody that I looked up to. And in fact, he was an athlete that actually steered me to stay in the swimming pool because I had a choice to go either into surf events because I was quite a good surf competitor as well, into the Ironman side of the ring. But he said, Jace, your place is in the pool. Stick with the pool. You'll go a lot further with that. And I'm glad he did. This is a 17-year-old kid. He's giving me this advice. So when he passed away, you always think you're so invincible, and especially somebody like him that was so gutsy, so passionate, and just really dug deep. You thought that he was like a superhero, but then all of a sudden, driving his car, had a heart attack, and unfortunately passed away at the wheel, crashing his car. So it's kind of really reflected on my life as to how important being active is. I'm very active at the moment in terms of what I'm doing with my teaching. So I'm actually helping clients overcome a fear of water. I also have like swimming stroke correction sessions and also like beginner swim as well. And I do ocean swimming with my clients. It's a company based here in Sydney, or business based here in Sydney. And I work with the demographic that's pretty much 40 to 75. And a lot of the clients are looking for somebody that's experienced, somebody that's older and more mature to coach with them, but they want somebody that's able to help them swim the way that they sort of swim. Because a lot of doctors, a lot of physios, a lot of gym instructors are giving my clients the advice that maybe this hard impact sort of stuff that you're doing, either running on the treadmill or running outside, is not for you. Your knees are starting to kind of fall apart, your body's starting to fall apart. Jump in the pool. And that's the next level that they can get to, where they get into the pool and I start to teach them how to swim, but teach them how to swim a way that's effective for them. Because not all sort of textbook teaching or YouTube teaching, anybody can learn everything. It's like, you're a doctor. I could probably do doctor things by watching stuff on YouTube, but am I going to be good at it? Not necessarily, right? So the way that I approach it is to make it adaptable to the client that I'm working with. So yeah, it's different.
I want to stop you there, Jason, because that's also important for me. Like you said, you're right. We tell people to get on the pool. They may have a knee injury, arthritis, hip arthritis, and we say, you know what, you can't run anymore, get on the pool. But we're actually not telling them what they should be doing.
Yeah, right. It's
going to the pool, but what
yeah, just go in the pool and do stuff. And the funny thing about that though is that a lot of my clients want to do something. They're really passionate about doing something, but yeah, they're not sure what to do. And there's so much noise. I call it noise. There's so much information, social media, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. There's so much noise out there that what's the best thing for you? But sometimes the best thing for you is actually connecting with somebody who's a professional that can actually steer you the right way for something that's going to benefit you. We're not saying that, the pool's the one thing that you can do, but the benefits of swimming are kind of next level. It's low impact. It's, it increases your cardiovascular fitness. That's your heart and your lungs. It really builds them up, because you're having to rely on, your face in such an uncomfortable position for most people, and a lot of my clients come with a fear of water. And we're talking people in their 50s to 70s that have a fear of water still, where they're kind of what I call moving through the water, but they're fighting the water. So I kind of teach them to be relaxed and enjoy the water. And it comes down to the first thing, which is the breath. Being in control of how you breathe is the first step that I teach all of my clients. Then we go into body position. Then we go into, letting the water hold you up to float. And then the next level is actually starting to swim. So there's a whole few steps that we do before it. It's kind of diagnosing for me to see where they're at, to see what they're comfortable with. And then from there, we start swimming. We don't jump in the pool or dive in the pool and start swimming like an Olympian. Just because we watch it on TV doesn't mean it's going to correlate to what we actually do.
From your experience, Jason, in medical point of view, what are the sort of conditions you have seen that have benefited from swimming or being in the pool?
One of the biggest benefits, actually, I'll get to that at the end. The obvious benefits are, that cardiovascular fitness that you're increasing. The flexibility that you're allowing to move through the water, and you're never putting yourself into a strain in what we're doing once you learn the correct technique that's for your body. But the biggest benefit, and this is one that a lot of people don't think about, is the mental side of things. And I know you're a holistic GP, and I love the fact that because the mental side of thing is, it's only just coming to fruition. In this past kind of, I'd say 10, 15 years, where it's a lot more bigger, it's a lot more wide known and more commonly talked about. But the mental side, in terms of the meditative state that you sort of go in when you're in the water, I call it like the Zen. But also just that relaxing, calming environment. Swimming doesn't have to be hard. You can still get your heart rate up, into the threshold, into that aerobic threshold where you want it to be, but you can be doing it quite effortlessly and quite easy. So that's one thing I love about it.
Can everyone get into that meditative Zen part, or is that a learned capability for swimming?
It is, there's two questions within that question. Can everybody get into a meditative state? Look, I've worked with some clients and they're like, you're not going to calm me down. This is how I am. I'm really high paced. We're talking Sydney professional people that are really highly strung because that's the way that their job is. But give them 5, 10, sometimes 15, 30-minute sessions that I do with my clients, and I've got them completely changing their mindset on the way they think about how they are in the water. And once they get that, that's what I call the epiphany moment. Once they get that and relax, then they realize that, oh, this guy actually knows what he's talking about. But you have to let them kind of go through that, and it's a bit of contrast work. The second part of that question, can anybody do that? Of course you can. You're never too old, you're never too young to learn something new, but you have to want it and you have to kind of accept it. And I guess for me as a coach, that's what I love, is actually challenging my clients to be able to get what I'm trying to articulate and let them feel it. Because swimming is a feeling sport. It's not move your arm through the water like this. And I'm very passionate about this. I've been in the water. I've been a scuba dive instructor for so many years as well, working with wealthy people. And you start to learn that actually being in the water, it's not about emotion. It's not about a movement. It's a feeling. And it's that feeling that I love to pass on to my clients.
Thank you. I think that's a great learning point there, because mental health is a big thing now, and at least now we have another path to relax and allow our body to feel that calmness. So this is another one I wanted to speak about. Asthmatics are often told to try swimming, for breath control and for optimum lung function. So as a professional swimmer, where do you see asthmatics in this area of swimming and pool-based activities for optimizing lung function?
Well, for an asthmatic, and I'm not clinically trained in any way, shape, or form. I'm just going from my life experience and what I've done with working with people. Asthmatics, it's all about breath control. When you're having a panic attack, if you don't have the Ventolin there, you're trying to calm them down. You're trying to slow them down. And I've been in situations as a lifeguard in previous jobs where you've had to do that because you haven't had access to Ventolin straight away. One of the good things about swimming is, when you start to learn it the correct way, you're actually using your breath. You're actually controlling the way that your breath actually works. So to be able to slow your breath down and know that you're in control of what you're doing is a really, really beneficial skill to have. And this is, for asthmatics, obviously Ventolin on side. If you know you're an asthmatic, you're always going to have that with you. But a lot of people don't really know what to do in that scenario. And to get them to kind of close their eyes and calm down and relax a little bit whilst you're getting that Ventolin, that's kind of the first part of it. Because funnily enough, the clients that I work with fear, the first thing that they do is usually actually hold their breath. And that's a fear response, because if I jump out in front of you, if I go off screen and then jump back onto it, I'm going to scare you. Your first reaction is to hold your breath. So why I'm so passionate about having the feeling, but also understanding how your breath works, kind of helps everybody, not just asthmatics. But swimming is an amazing sport for asthmatics in saying that, because it gives you that control.
Thank you. And what about people who have fear of water? I know you work with people like that. So from your experience, why is it that happens, and is it possible to overcome it?
Look, this is one thing that I stepped into after leaving my previous job, and it has been the most rewarding thing in my life. I've done some amazing things since leaving the sport and whilst in the sport, but helping clients overcome their fear and the fear of water is truly rewarding. And to kind of put everybody into one category, you can't. It's a very specialized sort of thing. There's some people that have a mild level of fear, where they might have had a small traumatic experience as a kid, and whether they're thrown into the pool as their first learn to swim experience. And with them, you're kind of gradually just getting them conditioned to overcoming that fear. But some of the more extreme cases that I work with, and this is where like my brain really loves it. It's almost like psychology without a psychology degree. Actually, funnily enough, some of my clients have called me Dr. Phil because I like to analyze things and I like to get inside of their mind and see what they're sort of thinking and feeling. And the people that have this fear have had really traumatic experiences, whether they've been revived after being underwater, resuscitated, or they've actually witnessed a family member as well. So it doesn't actually have to be a direct thing that's happened to them. It could be something that's they've witnessed. The third kind of the main thing that I see as well is social conditioning, where parents have said, if you go near the water, you'll drown. Don't go near the water. And a lot of that is their parents pushing their beliefs, their thought processes onto kids at a young age, and they keep that all the way through their life. And everybody can eventually get over it. I've got some clients that are into their, nearly 40, 50th session with me, and we're still getting to the point of moving through the water and getting comfortable in the water. But I love the fact that a lot of my clients, actually all of my clients, are pretty much determined to overcome this fear. And that's the first step of it. First of all, to acknowledge that you have aquaphobia or thalassophobia, which is the fear of big bodies of water or oceans, and then actually start to move through that and work through and challenge themselves. And it's a roller coaster ride. Some days we'll get into the session, into the pool, we'll have a really good session. Then they might come a couple of days later and we're back to square one again. So it's just, I call it little Lego blocks of building. Each little Lego block, every session we do, we find a positive from that session and then work forward. And it varies for every client. It's very different. Totally different for each person, each way the trauma has affected them. A lot of it's psychological, some of it's like physical as well. And psychologically, they're like, I know what I need to do. I know what you're asking me to do, but my body won't let it. And that's deeper rooted into a subconscious level as well, which is, I just find fascinating. It makes me think completely out of the square every single time as to how I can get the best out of each of my clients. And I love that part.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's always deeper, but it's beneficial. Now, since we talked about that, Jason, I just wanted to ask you, ocean swimming is a big thing in Australia.
Of course.
And everyone sometimes thinks they can get into the ocean and they will be fine. But as a professional athlete and now as a swimming instructor, what's your thoughts in ocean swimming, and what are the precautions people must be taking, whether it's adult or children? What is the message we can give out there?
The biggest message I would give, and this is the first one, always go for a swim with somebody. Swim between the flags. This is common knowledge. In this day and age, the message is out there. Don't go swimming by yourself. Don't go swimming in a beach that's unpatrolled. Don't go swimming, if you're not a confident swimmer, don't go swimming in the morning, don't go swimming late at night. Beaches is completely different all around the world. And I've been fortunate, in my time, I worked on a private yacht for a number of years with a wealthy family and traveled the world, even down to Antarctica. And beaches are completely different throughout the world. To say that, I'm really good in Southeast Asia or in the Mediterranean, it's really good. But to come here to Australia, our beaches can be some of the most dangerous and turn quickly. The conditions can turn really quickly. So that's why, my first message, if you're not a confident swimmer, go to your local swim school, go to, a swim school to become better in the water, just to become more confident. You don't have to swim perfect freestyle. That's what I'm really pushing at the moment, is you don't have to swim a perfect freestyle stroke. All you need to do is even just a breaststroke or 4 strokes and roll onto your back to allow yourself to have some survival to be able to get yourself out of a situation. But the first thing is, don't put yourself in the situation. Swim between the flags, make sure you're with other people that know where you are. And if you're not a confident swimmer, don't go further out, because the waves will take you and, the rips can just change in form at any single time. One of the best things you could probably look at doing, if ocean swimming is what you really want to do, is go join your local surf life saving club, or join into one of the ocean swimming, you know, cool companies that do it. So my company Swimly does ocean sessions. We do ocean fear of water sessions as well, that we've started up to give you the confidence. And there's an ocean group that is all over the country. There's a really good one on the Gold Coast. There's another one in Melbourne that I know of. There's another good one over in WA. So these guys are focused on helping you overcome your fears and give you the confidence to know what to do when it doesn't go right, because that's the difference. I think the statistics were about 300 and off the top of my head, 300, nearly over 350 people drowned last year in Australia. A lot of those were, funnily enough, not at the beaches. A lot of those weren't even kids. They were actually in rivers and lakes and dams. And some of them were, you know, because of the floods, obviously, and taking those risks to help family members. But the biggest demographic, which I found the most interesting out of those statistics, was the amount of adults, male adults from 25 to 70 made up majority of the numbers, not kids like most people think. And a lot of that is, you know, the dad going out to rescue their kids or help the family member. The kids usually float back in because they've had sort of a learned swim environment, you know, where they know what to do. And the dads go out going to save them and unfortunately get into a situation where, you know, it takes their life. So, yeah, kind of think about how confident you are in the water and kind of ways that you can do to make that better. Don't just go, you know, the old Australian attitude, she'll be right. Like, actually get out there and do something about it. Help yourself, because swimming is a great sport, but swimming in the ocean's even better. The benefits from there are just incredible. You know, really good for your skin, really good for your mental well-being, and, you know, it's being back at nature, being back one with nature. No chlorine. I kind of like the ocean a little bit more than the pool, to be honest, at the moment.
Yeah, I know. I wanted to also ask you the benefit of ocean swimming, but you've touched base on that a bit. So definitely a lot of benefits there, but, you know, careful, of course, you know, everyone needs to make sure their safety is looked after and all of that. Another one I wanted to speak to you, Jason, is ADHD has a big diagnosis recently, attention deficit hyperactive disorder, or ADD. And there's a famous swimmer who's claimed that, you know, he was ADD and swimming has helped him. What's your thought on this? And
look, I think anything that allows you to focus a little bit. I've worked with a lot of children in my time, and not just with swimming aspects. You know, I worked helping out a lot of kids with wealthy families. So one of the things that kids struggle with these days, and I'd almost say, look, you quote me on this, but, you know, it's not a statistic, but I almost think that most kids these days are ADHD because we're giving them technology. We're giving them a distraction. We're giving them things that flicker all over the place, whether it's the iPad, the TV, you know, it's the digital babysitter where you just plonk them in front of that. And they're not able to focus as much on other things. And swimming allows you to focus. You know, you're focusing on how it feels. You're not really focusing on what your body's doing so much. It's the sensations that you feel that allow you to focus. And, you know, working with kids, you can see how easily distracted they are. And I work with some kids now with teaching, and you're constantly pulling them back into line. Kids are going to be kids. Don't get me wrong. Kids will explore. They'll go off on tangents. You know, I love working with kids for that reason. But to be able to get them to focus when they need to focus, I think that's one of the key things. And giving them a skill like being in the water, it's enjoyable. It's fun. It allows them to get that sensory feeling kind of going on as well. Kids need to be in the water. Kids need to be learning, especially here in Australia, how to swim. And just having that conditioning to the water, you know, for kids with ADHD, it's one thing that I think is really beneficial for them.
great. I think that's great advice. Okay, so I think we have covered a lot of things. Is there anything else you'd like to speak about, Jason?
Oh, there's always lots I love to speak about. I think, you know, overall, swimming is a fantastic sport. For the mind, for the body, and overall holistically, because it allows your body to stretch, it allows your body to move through the water, it makes you feel really good when you leave the water as well. But also to one thing that I'm starting to really get back into again is the community around swimming. And I call the sessions that I have with my clients, a lot of them are private sessions or small groups of 2 or 3, and I call it humanizing the process again. We're so caught up in a very digital world, and look, I have to do social media for my business, but I don't like it. I actually genuinely don't like it, because it's a part of what I need to do to validate what I'm doing as a business, but I'd rather sit down and have a chat. And you know what, I'll kind of leave with this one story. There's this one gentleman that comes in, he doesn't do sessions with me, but he comes in with his carer to the pool at Leichhardt, and he swims up and down, and he's an incredible swimmer. He's very doddery on his feet when he's getting into pool, but once he gets into the water, he's actually an amazing and an incredible person. I actually chatted to his carer one day, just said, who is he? What's his story? He's a very good swimmer. You can see he's very well. And she actually said, this is Wayne. He comes in here, he's got Alzheimer's. But when he gets in the water, he's very, very happy, and he enjoys being in the water. Oh, and by the way, he was a Commonwealth Games medalist swimmer. And I'm like, here's Wayne. He's Wayne Robert Vincent. He's in his late 70s, early 80s. And for him, the water is his happy place. He can't remember everything. So I had a lovely chat with him, had a really good photo taken with him, and told the story on socials, which got a really good response to it. I wasn't doing it for that. I was actually blown away that the fact that, a man that's sort of losing capability of his mind to remember things knows exactly what it's like to be back in the water again, and knows the feeling. And he could even distinguish the difference between what we call in swimming a fast pool or a slow pool. And there's 2 different pools that he swims in, and he knows the difference between the fast one and the slow one. He doesn't remember, he remembers my face the next time that I saw him about a week later, but he couldn't put 2 and 2 together as to who I was. But it's one of those things that you're always going to remember the feeling and how enjoyable it is in the water. So it's one thing, if you're not in the water, jump on in there. If you have a fear of water, challenge and confront it, and take it on. But yeah, it just made me feel so good, that story.
Great. So any last top 3 tips? So you've given us a lot of tips here. So
look, the first tip is, if you're not confident in swimming, do something about it. You can make some simple changes, some subtle motions that you can do in the water can make some big changes to what you're doing within the water. The second tip is, if you are a swimmer already, slow is fast. Don't fight the water. Don't bash your way through the water. Allow the water to support you. And the third thing is, be in control of your breath. Allow yourself to relax in the water. Don't feel like you have to hold your breath. And the fourth one, I'm going to give you 4, because the fourth one is, you just got to have fun, because life is too short. You got to get out there, have fun, and enjoy what you're doing.
Jason, I just wanted to stop you now with breath control, right? Is there something you can teach us, like right now, where people understand? Because we talk a lot about breath control, but I don't know whether it makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I'll give one of my secrets away. So what breath control is it? Special, yeah, just for the listeners. So for me, breath control is the most important thing. If you don't have a breath, if you're not able to breathe comfortably, you're not actually, you're not surviving. I love watching all those medical shows, ambulance shows, that sort of stuff. I'm Bondi Rescue, fascinated by all those. Being in that profession for a little bit. But what I notice is, and I touched on it earlier, is that a lot of my clients, when they first come to see me, I'll get them to push off the wall if they're comfortable to do that. The first thing they do is they hold their breath. As soon as you hold the breath, I use the analogy as it's almost like holding a pillow over your face, and it's like smothering you, sort of thing. So the first response that you're going to do to that is you're going to hold your breath, because your mind subconsciously thinks it's the last breath it's ever going to take. So we start shutting down all the other body functions, everything else starts tensing up. And then the second thing you start doing is fighting. If you're holding your breath every single time whilst you're swimming, your body is fighting by tensing up on a subconscious level. This is not even a conscious level. You don't even know half the time why you're doing that. So the best way to swim is actually as relaxed as possible. So allowing, and it's almost, they say the perfect breath is 5.5 seconds. I've been reading a book called Breathe, and it's all about, I think it's by James Nestor. And it's all about, these guys did studies on nose breathing, mouth breathing, the perfect line of breath. And they came up with 5.5 seconds is the best breath to take the breath in and to take the breath out. Now, there's always studies against that sort of thing, but I kind of practice it with myself. But the other thing that a lot of people do is that 5.5. So it's kind of like a yoga breath. It's really slow, controlled in. It's really slow, controlled out. And the other thing that a lot of people do when they go to take a breath, especially in freestyle, because it's not a natural motion, turning your head to the side and then coming back again, is they try and take the biggest breath of air in. They try to empty all their lungs out and then fill it all the way back up again. You only need to kind of let it out by about 50% and then top it back up. You always want to keep a little bit of air in your lungs to allow, that kind of balloon that your lungs are, to allow you to stay a little bit higher up. So I always say I give you one tip, but I give a little bit more. I'm very passionate about what I do, so I kind of give.
I know, that was a great tip. So stay relaxed, breathe as normal. Yeah, correct. Nasal breathing is important. I totally agree with all of that. Is there anything you would like to ask me, Jason?
I think ultimately, what is the objective of what you'd like to achieve? I love the fact when I saw this podcast available and the opportunity to come and chat with you, but what would be one of your goals that you'd like to achieve, with you?
No, I think end of the day, we wanted to tell people, my goal or for the episode, I was...
Both. The episode, no. Yeah, why not both?
For the episode was, importance of swimming, benefit, and actually just give some tips and speak to a professional about how swimming can be such a great sport. But my own goal is basically this. I think health is really important now. We are really having a big mental health pandemic. I think we need to look at health holistically. It's not one person can't fix anything anymore. Yeah. So our diet, lifestyle, sleep, exercise, therapy, relationships, community, it's getting all that together. And I think as a GP, we are great because we are often a contact point of connecting all these people and forming that community for that patient's health. So that's why I think I look at medicine this way. But conventional medicine is great. Like if you're having an asthma attack, please use your puffer. It's life-saving. Do not try to take some herbs or, at that point. No, it doesn't work. Get your puffer. So I think we need to incorporate everything and understand health is bigger than we all think. And, end of the day, after COVID, I think we know nothing else matters other than good health.
You know what? I got to be honest, Doctor. I've worked with billionaires. I've worked with celebrities. I've worked with, some of the wealthiest people in the world, some of the most influential people in the world. And it doesn't matter how much money you have. It's about the relationships you have with the people around you. And it's about, having a good and healthy lifestyle. That's the key to everything. I got to be honest, we didn't really touch on it, but I've had mental health issues since leaving the sport. I put a big barrier up and shut myself down from it. And it's only now, later on in my life, nearly 20 years after leaving the sport that I love, that I'm now back into it and actually confronting those that challenged me. And that's why I love this idea that you have about holistic, because it's not just one thing. We all want, we live in this world, that everything's quick. We can get whatever we want really, really quickly. But the reality is you've got to take a piece from everything for your own personal health. You can't just have one pill that's going to fix everything. And if you do have one pill, it's going to be cause and effect. There's going to be something else that's going to falter. So you have to do it and tackle it from all different angles. And I think that's the biggest thing that we need to remember.
Yeah, I think thanks for that advice. But Jason, if we can just extend the episode a bit with our permission from sure. The producer, I think you touched a very important thing. I often wondered, and I think people often knew, when you've reached such big place in your life very young as a professional athlete, and then you come back to a normal life, I'm sure it will affect mentally your ego, your purpose, all of that. So what did you do to actually redirect your purpose to a different place?
I'll be honest with you. I just turned 40 in July this year, and it's only by starting this business that I kind of found my purpose. And my purpose is to teach. My purpose is to give back. And whether it's teaching swimming, whether it's teaching my other passion of being out on the water, driving boats, or my third passion, which is teaching people how to drive four-wheel drives, off in the bush. My passion is teaching. But I hid it for so long, chasing that next big thing after retiring from swimming. So I kind of went all the way up on the stepping stones from, club, state, national, international competition, then on to the Commonwealth Games, gold medalist at Commonwealth Games, the World Championships the next year, the Pan Pacifics the year after that. And then the next step was the Olympics. Everybody's like, you're a shoo-in for the Olympics. And I'll be honest with you, I don't know what happened, but by the click of the fingers, that dream was shattered. I missed out on the Olympic team by the click of the fingers. We're only talking about 0.1 of a second. And it took me 6 months to really kind of process that. But then when I did process that, I kept going training afterwards. My training partner at the time was Ian Thorpe. There were other members of our squad. I was taught by Tracy Menzies, one of the first female coaches on the Australian swim team. And when I didn't realize my dream, I just shut emotionally down and literally cut off. And that was it. I didn't know how to process it. I just walked away from the sport. I'll be honest, I don't even know what I said to my coach when I said that I'm no longer swimming anymore. I can't remember that conversation at all. But then I just went off and just started doing some, crazy things. I went into event management, setting up sporting events. I went into working for a cruise line in the Caribbean for a couple of years. Everything had like a couple of years. And then I went into stunt driving team here in Australia, commentating at the Royal Easter Show. Driving monster trucks, commentating for monster trucks here in Australia. And then I became a dive instructor and started working on billionaires' yachts traveling the world. I even had a small little stint with Mariah Carey, working for her for 6 months, traveling around as part of her entourage. But you know what? In all of that time I was doing those things, most of the time I was having amazing experiences, but riding the massive roller coaster of like a huge high, but a massive low where I was so depressed and so sad and so angry, and I couldn't understand why. And it wasn't until I got back into Australia, met a really good partner who I'm with now, and she kind of forced me to start challenging myself, challenging my issues that I had and confronting them. And I did. And a lot of what it was, and this is quite deep, but the swimming was a way for me to self-harm. Now, if you are kind of self-harming, like, please go see your GP, 100% please do. But on reflection, I love that pain. And that pain had stopped. That pushing yourself to the absolute max, because you just got used to it. You thrived on it. That became your addiction, to really push yourself where you're getting double leg cramps and in tears because your legs are seized up, or you're completely out of breath. Your heart rate's just pushed 220 beats per minute. And that's what I was struggling with. So I've gone through kind of this holistic approach. I've gone down psychologists, I've gone down hypnotherapists, I've gone down GPs, and I've gone down like energy work as well, energy healing. So talking about holistic, I've done it all. I've even seen naturopaths and dietitians to kind of help me get some balance back within my life. But the one thing that really helped me was getting back to the place that I love, which is the water, and realizing who I am as a person and what my self-worth is. It's not a dollar sign and in my bank balance every month. What it is actually allowing myself to be my true self, which is to help people. My whole life I've helped people. I helped three other guys get a gold medal in the 4x200 freestyle relay. I helped set up the major sporting events within the country. I helped, people have the time of their lives on a cruise line on holidays. I helped, engage with a commentator at the Royal Easter Show to watch cars and enjoy that experience. I help billionaires have experiences that nobody else would ever dream of. And now I'm helping clients get the best out of themselves through the water. So that's what's kind of allowed me to become the better version of me.
I mean, this is my favorite part, I think, of our whole interview. I think like finding your passion and that whole story was so inspiring, Jason. Thanks for coming today. Now, where can our listeners find you? And before you go, also share with us anything that's really inspired you, a book or, anything that's really inspired you.
I think the one thing that's really inspired me is, and I got to ask this question not long ago, and the one thing that's inspired me is what I call now, my life I call the Slumdog Billionaire life. You know, it's that movie where all the pieces come together and he answers the questions and he wins the $1 million on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. But for me, my life, you know, and the thing that I'm so inspired by is every single person that I've interacted with in some way, shape, or form has created a jigsaw puzzle piece as to who I am as a person. And it's only through sitting back, reflecting on my life and what I've sort of done. That's the one thing that I find the most, because there's people that still come into my life now that I connected with 20, 30 years ago. And I think that's the most important thing. You know, the other thing, so for people who'd like to do some work with me, I am based in Sydney. I work out of like pools within the inner city kind of area, but I'm looking to do some online stuff as well, because, you know, I just want to give. And for me, you know, everybody's like, oh, you got to make money. Yes, Sydney's expensive, but for me, the money's a byproduct of what it might do, and that's me being passionate about what I do. So yeah, that's kind of my story. That's who I support, you know, and there's so much more I could talk about, but I know we don't have time.
Thank you, and thank you for coming to the show again. It was a great pleasure having you today with us.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for inviting me here.